Hello and welcome to Matthew Reads, I guess. I genuinely don't know how this idea came to me, but I think it came after I had the urge to reread my old favorite books for something after I think I just started thinking about the concept of having favorite books just in general. Because, I'm not the type of person who, reconsumes media very regularly. It's very seldom that I'll come back to something that I love, be that, shows, movies, honestly, even books. Weirdly, though, games I will quite happily, go back to quickly. But part of me wonders, since if you compare, a game to, a show or a book, a game is so much more expensive. I'm less likely to drop, 50, £60 on a new game than I am, say, 10, 11, £12 on a book. But yeah, then I started thinking about books that at one point I considered my favourite. And then I thought about, rereading some of them to see whether I still, felt the same way I felt about them. And to be honest, see if anything had changed. And never mind the fact that I started, I got the idea of this. I think you can see, yeah, to be fair, the pile of books there you can see over my shoulder, definitely not as bad as it was because there were, 3 volumes of a manga that I've started reading. So, there were 12 books on there, and I think now there's only 9 because I'm reading the manga. Anyway, to be fair, for this video, I only revisited 2 books. Because, when it comes to books that I would have considered my favourite at one point, I don't think I have all that many, maybe 5 or 6 at a push. But the first one was They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. So, basically, just a quick bit of context. I started a little book club with some of my besties from my master's degree, and we were umming and ahhing about the first book that we'd all read, and nobody wanted to suggest, or no one was suggesting anything, so I was like, I'll do it! Because I was also thinking of rereading my old favourite books, and I figured having a little book club would be a perfect excuse to reread at least one of them. Now, I remember They Both Die at the End being my favourite book, all the way through, university for me, and I'm sure it was even prior to that. I remember during one of my MA classes, we were all asked to bring in, it was either a favourite book or a book that meant a lot to us, and everyone was bringing, literary fiction, a high fantasy, and here's me with my gay little white book. So, the thing is, I have this really fun thing that happens with me where I'll consume a piece of media and immediately forget 90% of what's happened. It's one of those things, I'll enjoy it in the moment, and after I finished, I know that I enjoyed it, but will I remember why I enjoyed it? No. When it came to They Both Die at the End, I know even prior to the little book club that I have with my IRL oomphs, I'm sure I'd reread it at least once, so I had patchy memories of bits in the book. Things that happen throughout the book, the end, or how the end comes to be, Then it was an experience for me to fill in the blanks that I had in my brain from this book. All of those bits that I never remembered, they came in the form of minor characters. There's 2 people that Mateo and Rufus, the main characters of this one, would pass, and then there'd be a chapter from those 2 girls. For example, Mateo, I think he buys a blind date with a book from this bookshop, and then he ends up just leaving it on a bench for someone to find. And then, the POV switches to the 2 girls, for a single chapter, and they only ever have, 1 chapter. And, one of those girls is dying as well, Mateo and Rufus are. Also love that I just haven't explained the concept of the book. The main characters live in a world where this system called Deathcast calls people who are going to die that day between midnight and 3 a.m. That's basically the concept. And then it follows Mateo and Rufus, living out their last day together. But yeah, in the chapter with the two girls, they find the book on the bench, and one of them is like, bomb, because like it's see something, say something. The good sis was seeing something and figured she should say something, even though it was just a book. But yeah, also there was a guy that just blew up a gym in this book. Completely forgot about that. But then again, I'm also not a particularly perceptive reader. Like, I think sometimes. I do like to hashtag think sometimes. But at the same time, I also like to just go wherever the book is going to take me and just like experience. Because I might have said it on this channel before, sometimes I feel like the best way to experience things, or like at least the most fun way for me to experience things, is to just say what the hell, sure, and like go along with it. But like, even being like that, having, read this book already, knowing how Mateo and Rufus die, it was like rank as hell reading like the first chapters, seeing like, or catching like setup that you didn't know was coming, say, the first time you read it. Or when you're in, like, Rufus's first chapter, he literally tells you how Mateo dies. It's wild. The whole book spends time with Mateo. Well, not the whole book, but the majority of the book spends time with Mateo and Rufus. Like, having more or less of a, well, I'm going to die, so I might as well kind of attitude. Which, it made sense for both of them, but, like, something I really appreciated in the book was that, like, Mateo, like, prior to finding out that he was going to die, was very much a recluse, very much a shut-in, anxiety-riddled, no friends. That anxiety he had about the outside world, that still stayed with him even when he was being brave and, like, going out and about with Rufus. Like, there's one point where he literally tells Rufus just to walk with his bike rather than the two of them, like, riding on Rufus's bike, just because, like, Mateo felt less likely that the two of them were going to die sooner during the day, like if they were just walking. And it was obviously the case of Rufus brought Mateo out of his shell to be like more confident and I guess extroverted, but like on the other side it was Mateo who helped Rufus bring out his like introspective, like more creative, sensitive side, or at least let him open himself up to those bits that were already there. I do also think that, like, reading it now, like, a few years later, after it's been, like, dethroned out of my favourite book, this book and the ending, it doesn't make me as sad as it did, like, the first time or two that I read it. Obviously, it's, like, still a heartbreaking story, asking the question of, like, what would you do if you knew it was your last day and that you were gonna die today? But, like, having experienced it and knowing how both boys meet their ends, like, it still does hurt, especially since they get, like, a whole 360 pages, or at least in my copy they do. Like, that they still at least got to live that last day and got to, like, experience and live life. Even to this day, the book really still does have, like, a lot of emotion for me. And it's one of those, like, I really still do stand by calling it my favourite book for so many years, because, to be honest, I still think it's good. I will also say, very weird experience seeing your favourite book that you read prior to getting, like, massively popular blow up on TikTok because of Book Talk. It was one of those things where you kind of just sat there like, how did you all get in my house? What are you all doing here? It was like, why? It's also wild when it happens to, like, singers that I've known for ages, like Charlie XCX and Sabrina Carpenter. Like, why are you all suddenly in my house? I've been here since it was built. And, like, that's low-key how I feel about this book. But also, to be fair, that is why I chose, because like, I'd already picked out the two books that I wanted to, like, reread for this idea that I had. But, like, they both die at the end. I just figured since it did blow up on Book Talk, it would make it, like, a lot more accessible for my friends that were gonna read it as well. Anyway, the other book that I'm talking about, love that I just, like, said shit for, like, 5 minutes about the last book, and I'm gonna do the same for this one. The other book is The Vast Fields of Ordinary by Nick Bird. Genuinely prior to this video, I do not remember the last time I even touched this book, if you ignore me reading it again for this video. This book, that movie, this book was like one of the very first queer books that I read. Like, prior to making this video, I could not even remember whether the book was like critically good or not. Like, I just remember that I enjoyed it and like the feelings that it gave me. It's more so that this book is laden with nostalgia more than anything else, like, as opposed to They Both Die at the End. And, you know, when I did reread it, I was like coming back to those feelings, seeing the things on the page and experiencing the emotions again, and I was like, yeah, that is why I loved it so much the first time. And I will say, I also went through an era where I referred to like books as a things just happen kind of book, which is a statement I stand by. You know, with this book, is literally, it's a coming of age book about how like the main character Dade spends his final summer at home before he goes to university. Like, it's just coming of age, him living through that summer with like no real plot or anything. Now, this book, it also was released in 2009, so let's be wary of that, y'all. Like, the first couple times I read it, because I know I've read it at least twice before, like, I never really thought about that, but coming back to it, oh my god, did I realise the way I realised Silky Nutmeg Ganache is a force, to quote Vivacious. There are a bunch of things, like, throughout the book that just scream of the time. And, like, I know there'll have been loads of books that I've read and written about set in, like, quote-unquote modern times that, like, say 10 years down the line when technology has changed again, that will also feel like this one does for now. Like, Dade, the main character, like, he has a mobile phone, but, like, it's certainly not a smartphone. And, like, there's one point where this, like, side character, Jay, he gets a new phone, and, like, everyone is gagging over it because it can play MP3s, opposed to, like, the smartphones we have now that can just, like, get Spotify and Apple Music and just stream. And, I mean, they do also have the internet, but it, like, gets referred to, like, with capital I, internet. Like, it's the big scary internet that we don't know a lot about yet. And, like, leading on from big scary capital I internet and this book being very hashtag 2009, this does not feel like it's going to relate. Dade sucked sometimes, like, not all the time, but there were times where he was full on just an arsehole to the other characters. And I say this with love in my heart, because, like, after I finished reading the book, I went onto Goodreads just to, like, log that I'd read it. And, like, the top review was, like, complaining about how bad of a character Dade was. And, like, that made me think that, like, first of all, not all characters should be, like, 100% pure and perfectly likable. But also, it made me think of that tweet where someone was like, I love pancakes, and then someone replied, so you hate waffles, and it's like, no bitch, those are two different sentences. And it just makes me think, there are some people that cannot handle complex main characters. Like, you want them to be like that poster board YN, where they can do no wrong, they can only get hurt by others. Like, I'm sorry, that's just not realistic to real life. Like, people have layers. Like, was this not the entire plot of Shrek? That people are, like, multifaceted, have a multitude of layers? But, hashtag but, with how this, like, links back to 2009, because that was the point I was making. Like, Dade is gay and lives in a small town in Iowa in 2009. Like, of course he's gonna be a bitch. This book was released in a modern setting today, in, like, today's year. Like, Dade would have a smartphone and, like, access to the internet. He would be able to find community online on his own. Like, he wouldn't feel so isolated. And, like, part of his character, like, was that isolation. That is why kind of he acted the way he acted sometimes. Like, At best, Dade was going to go on the big scary capital I internet and find a chat room with hopefully other gay people in his area. Like, homeboy is trapped in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, and gets called slurs on the regular. Like, obviously he's gonna have a prickly, unlikable edge to him. Like, I'd be more surprised and disappointed if he didn't. Anyway, to stay on the 2009 track, since I'm gonna be honest, pretty much every negative. To be honest, that last whole section wasn't a negative. That was just me complaining about people who can't handle multi-layered characters. But yeah, one thing that stuck out to me that, like, I couldn't tell whether it was something specifically of the time or just, like, internalized homophobia that made it onto the page was that, like, Dade's love interest, Alex, he comments that he likes that Dade was still guyish, meaning, like, not feminine or effeminate. But, like, specifically, Alex ends up using the F slur to refer to feminine men. And, like, that's what got me, and where I was like, is this just because the book's set in 2009, or is it, like, internalized homophobia that's made it onto the page? Because, I mean, I think it would have been different, you know, had Alex just said that he, like, wasn't into feminine men, because that in of itself is fine. I think the issue stemmed from the fact that he used the F slur to refer to feminine men, because that's meaning, like, he as a character isn't seeing himself as the F slur or, like, feminine, so he's, like, seeing feminine men as, like, below him. Things to think about. Then I also forgot, like, how just abrupt and, like, rushed the ending of this book was. And, like, I'm fine spoiling it because it came out, you know, as of me sitting and talking here, like, 17 years ago. It can nearly drink in the UK. Like, Alex and Dade, they don't end up together in the end. Like, there are hints that Alex has of worrying what's going to happen between the two of them, because Alex thinks of himself a loser. He, like, works in fast food and, like, sells weed. Like, that is what he does. He, like, his life isn't going anywhere. And Dade is going to university in the fall, in the autumn. I feel like long distance would have been much harder when communication wasn't as easy as it is now. But, like, with the way... The issue for me wasn't that they broke up in the end, because, I mean, in context of the book, it makes sense. The issue is that, like, Dade essentially cuts things off with Alex, this guy that he's been obsessed with all summer, in one sentence. It's, like, left with one sentence, not even active with, like, Dade and Alex there. It's literally, like, Dade narrating, well, I told Alex this was the last time I'm gonna see him. And, like, that was it. Like, mama, I forgot how shit that was. And, like, the whole book is, like, so slow in vibe. You know, it feels like summer. And then all of a sudden, the relationship that's gone through, like, the majority of the book ends in 2 sentences, and they never, like, interact again. And then, like, Dade is whisked off to university where he's suddenly thriving. Like, it was just like a hard swerve into a tree. But, I mean, I will say, I still enjoyed the book. Like, I loved recapturing the feelings and the nostalgia that it gave me. And, like, I still enjoyed more or less what I did enjoy about it before, which, to be honest, most of it was the slow summer feeling of it. You know, I definitely like rereading it for this video. I see flaws where I didn't before. And to be honest, even just reading it now, I don't know whether I'd call... Like, I enjoy it, and I'm keeping it... Literally, it lives up on that little dark spot on my shelf there. It's going back there. Like, I still like it, but... Is it maybe being demoted from one of my favourites? Maybe. Still enjoy it, but... Call me the final track from Sophie Cates' album Supernova, because, you know, with the way that I don't see you how I used to. But yeah, that was this. Like, there was really no major plan to this video. It was literally just me rereading 2 of my old favourite books to see what happened. Um, yeah, I would highly recommend going back to like reread old favorite books that you like haven't touched in a while, just to see if like you feel anything different or if anything seems different. Because you know, it's an interesting experience for me, especially since this book that I held high, like so highly, has kind of fallen. But yeah, that was this video. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like if you want to. I have an idea for another video, but I'm gonna be honest, it requires reading 2 more of the books on the so no doubt it'll probably come out in like 2 months with how dead this channel is. This channel is my neglected baby. Sorry. Bye.